Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So this one's going to be a little bit different, but I hope you guys will stick around and still find it interesting. So this video is going to show my journey from the beginning after having a baby, getting back into jumping and hopefully getting back into the ring very soon. So for those of you who don't know, I, at this moment of filming the video, I'm around 4 months postpartum. So I had my son on the 25th of January, 2025. So I've seen a few people make these kinds of videos on like TikTok and a few Instagram reels, but I thought it would be interesting to make a little YouTube series for any other mums out there or people that are intrigued to see what it's like after having a baby, getting back into horses. I feel like there's a really common stereotype of that once you have a baby, like you may as well just forget all about everything you're doing with horses and you're never going to have time for them, you're never going to ride ever again. And I want to prove that that is not the case. Is it harder to train and ride after you've had a baby? Yes, absolutely. Finding the time is way more difficult. I've spoken to lots of different mums in the time since I've had a baby and a few months prior, and they've all said different things. I've had mums that have said that they haven't ridden in over years, like since they had their baby, and they really miss it. I've had mums saying that they like learnt to love riding again and really looked forward to getting back into it. I've had mums say that they've lost their bottle a little bit with jumping and lost their bottle with riding, so they really wanted to get back on, but they were really nervous when they did. So I wanted to share my personal journey and tell you guys all about it. So I actually got on for the first time 4 weeks postpartum. So I sat on Nero at that point. So I had a 3rd degree tear, which I'm not going to explain what that is because I tried to forget. I didn't even ask at the time. I didn't want to know. I knew it was bad. I didn't want to know. It is bad. It was bad. I had to have a surgery after to reconstruct things. My God, I'm just gonna leave. If you're still around, I'll tell you more about it, maybe on the podcast. But anyway, it was quite bad. I was very, very sore. It was actually very early for me to get on because they say it's at least minimum 6 to 8 weeks before you should get back on after that. But as we all know, equestrians don't tend to listen to doctors when it comes to anything medical. So I was back on at 4 weeks. And at this point, I literally just sat on Nero. I literally sat on him, that was it. And I was quite shocked because I thought I was gonna get a really big shock with pain when I got on, and I did, but not in the way that I thought. So I thought I would feel the pain at, let's just say, the site of the surgery. That's where I'd been sore for the weeks prior, but I didn't. I was sore just in the usual places that you'd be sore if you hadn't ridden for a while, which I hadn't. So when I jumped on, I felt all the pain like up in my thighs, and it literally, I should have stretched beforehand, and that is my peak advice for anyone getting back on, like after having a baby or having not ridden in a long time. Stretch before you get on, because I didn't. I literally just dragged Nero on up to a fence and just jumped on and was like and all I did was literally walk onto my driveway with him and walk back and jump off. So I was on for all of 5 minutes, but I did get this photo. And then the following week I actually rode properly for the first time, and I rode bareback. Because out of all of my horses, I would say I know and trust Nero the best, which you're probably wondering why after seeing him do things like this. But I know him really well, so I think he's pretty safe. So I actually had a little ride round in the school bareback on Nero, and I really enjoyed it. He just looks after me so well, and he did do some of his bucking. I actually put a little video of him doing it on my story on Instagram at the time, so he was having a good time of it. And that was at 5 weeks postpartum. And from there, I just started bringing my other horses into work in order of how much I trust them to come back into work after having a year off. So most of them had either a year off or close to a year off. Harriet I rode until I was around 12 weeks pregnant, as I did with Nero, and I think Carly a little bit too. Tilly had the full year off, as did some of my others, like Louis. Obviously the foals weren't in work yet. But yeah, if pregnancy taught me one thing, it was don't be scared to give your horses time off, because most of the time it does them so much good to just have a break and just kind of chill in the field for a bit. So when I first got pregnant, and before I got pregnant, I was planning, it was obviously a planned pregnancy. I'm asexual, so I had an IUI, which is similar to IVF, but less intricate, and it doesn't cost as much because I'm on my own and I choose to be. So that was the route that I went down to get pregnant. So obviously it was a planned pregnancy. So beforehand, I had planned that I was going to do this, that and the other with the horses, and when should I get someone in to train them and work with them for me, so that the second I'm ready to get back on after pregnancy, they're all ready to go and they're fit. That was not what happened. I found out around 6 months pregnant that my son had a heart condition, and I just halted everything with the horses, all my commitments with them, apart from like the feeding and looking after them on the day-to-day basis, just ceased. Like, I was no longer thinking about riding and stuff, I was just worried about my son. So because of that, I was no longer able to panic about what I was doing with the horses, and it was only after I had my son that I realised how ridiculous it was to think that I was going to hop straight back on and continue where I left off anyway. So a lot of people that I spoke to had said that they felt unbalanced when they got back on after having a baby, and that they'd lost all their core strength. I didn't feel like that. I just felt a little bit weak. I didn't really feel unbalanced. I could sit bucks on my pony still, bareback, like from the word go. And a lot of that will be muscle memory too, I guess, but I felt pretty balanced and stable. There were a couple of rides I had where it was more evident when I was doing a little bit more intricate work with the horses that I just wasn't quite as fit as I was, obviously, because I'd had so much time off. But it wasn't a case of like, I felt like I was a million miles away. It was more annoying because I felt like I was so close to being back where I was, but I just wasn't quite there. My biggest advice coming back into work after having a baby is take your time. You'll know when it's time to get back on. You'll mentally and physically be feeling ready for it, even if you're maybe physically not quite, in my case. And just take your time, do stretches before you get back on, and make sure that the horses you are getting on, you either trust and know very well, or they are relatively safe, so that you're not just gonna get onto, basically don't just get on like a freshly back 4-year-old and go gallivanting off down the arena. That shouldn't be your first ride. But anyway, that brings us to now. So I gradually brought my horses back into work. So I've now got Nero, Tilly, Carly, Harry just back into work, and Minnie, Beauty and Freckles. So I've just got Louis and my foals to bring back into work now. So my foals, I say back into work, they need to be broken in. So it's just them and Louis to join the rest of the crew now. So I'm actually really proud of myself. It's not often I say I'm proud of myself and give myself a pat on the back, but I've got most of my horses back in work now, which is insane considering I struggled to keep them all in work before I had a baby, and yet now I'm actually doing a lot better. And I think that's because, weirdly, since having a baby, I have regained my love for the horses and for the sport. When I was pregnant and before I was pregnant, I kind of lost my way a little bit with the horses, and I sort of thought, do you know, is this what I even want to do anymore? Like, I love the horses, but do I just want to throw them out in the field and kind of look after them as pets forever? And I just kind of lost the will to live with it, to be honest. I didn't know whether it was what I wanted to do anymore. I've always loved the sport, but over the last few years, I feel like I've really disconnected from it, and I didn't know whether it was something I even enjoyed anymore. And there were elements, like when I did ride, I enjoyed myself, I had fun, but I'd lost the motivation to actually go outside and get a horse in and groom them and tack them up. I'm sure some of you watching will probably be able to relate. People do go through periods like that with horses, but since having my son, I feel like I've got all of that motivation back, and every morning I wake up and I'm planning my day around obviously my son and riding and the horses, and I feel like I've really got my love back for it. I have friends that I ride out with now that have made it even better. I'm riding out with a friend of mine all the time who I've known since I was like 12 years old, probably even earlier, probably about 9 years old actually. So we've known each other a long time, so we're riding out on like hacks and schooling and filming and stuff together again, which has been a really big highlight of my journey back into riding. So I would say another bit of advice is find some friends if you have any, if you have any around that could come out riding with you, or other liveries and things. Just go out on a few hacks and stuff and see if you can enjoy yourself doing that if you're struggling to get your motivation back for horses. And obviously everyone is different, so don't feel bad if this isn't how you feel after. Like, this is just my personal experience. I know a lot of people who haven't ridden for a long time after they've had a baby, but for me it was the absolute opposite. I wanted to get straight back on. As soon as I'd had my son, like, I was very sore. Like, within a couple of days I was really wanting to get back on, even though I was ridiculously sore and I knew I couldn't yet. I couldn't sit on a chair, let alone a horse. But now I've got all my horses back in work, it was time to start jumping. And that is what I want to mainly show in this video. So if you've stuck around this long, well done. And I'm going to show you my first jump back on a horse. So you're going to see Carly and Tilly in this video. So you're going to see 2 different days of jumping Carly and the first time I jumped Tilly this year and in a few years. So with Carly, Carly is a lovely mare. She does have a little bit of arthritis at the base of her neck. I'm not going to go into that too much in this video because you're going to hear a lot more about Carly in the Meet the Horses video. But yeah, she has a little tiny bit of mild arthritis at the base of her neck that she has treated. So for that reason, she doesn't jump huge fences anymore. So we keep things nice and small with her and simple. If the fences are small, then she can go in slightly on the forehand if she needs to, and that just allows her to relax through her neck. It's not ideal, it's not how I'd like to position her, but it's how she can comfortably still enjoy doing what she loves. And we do treat the arthritis in her neck whenever necessary. So the first time I got her out, we literally just had a play over a single fence, and we had a play over a little upright, a little cross and stuff. So I'm going to talk you through it as you guys are watching it. So I always start by giving Carly a really good trot around, and prior to this I'd given her a pretty loose trot, so she had her head completely, and now we're just popping up into canter. And I think I did a little bit of rising canter here just to kind of test my balance a little bit, and as you can see, I'm not looking overly too bad, but I do look a little bit unbalanced just when I know what I usually look like. But this does make me laugh a lot because I'm wearing my maternity jumper, which is 5 sizes too big for me, and now that I no longer have my bump, it just looks hilarious and it kind of makes me look a bit hunchbacked. But overly, I wasn't too shocked at how Carly was feeling. She felt a little bit stiff in the canter. Here she is just having a canter on the other rein and coming to her first fence, which actually I think I caught her by surprise because she didn't mess around too much with her head coming in, and she normally is terrible with her head. You can see her starting to do a bit of head shaking there, and just giving her a little pat when she loosens off after. So this day she was quite head shaky, but she does do that when she hasn't been in work and jumping for a while. So you'd see me just kind of fighting for my stride there, and just holding her so she doesn't just run when she's just trying to run through the bridle all the time. But I think what I absolutely need to work on is my posture, because I'm just hunching forward and then staying hunched forward. I mean, I do look like the Hunchback of Notre Dame in that jumper anyway, but I'm still definitely hunching.
Change that back.
So I was happy but slightly deflated after that first jump on Carly, just because I felt like a sack of potatoes, but I really enjoyed it. I'd missed jumping, and what I was pleasantly surprised with was that I feel like I'm braver than I was before I had my son, which is a really strange thing because I haven't heard that many people say that. And please comment down below if you've had a child and you feel this way as well, because I haven't spoken to many people that do. But I had really lost my bottle before I had my son. Like I said, I'd lost my passion for the sport, and maybe it was that combined really. Maybe I just didn't want to do it anymore, so I'd kind of lost my confidence with it. But every time something was put up that was bigger than like 90, I would freak out. Which is weird because I used to jump like 130s and 140s on ponies and horses and not even bat an eyelid. I would go in anything show jumping. Like literally I'd jump any horse. I could be warming up on one horse and someone would be like, oh, can you jump my horse? And I'd get on them and jump them over anything. I was not bothered at all. Nothing scared me. And yet over the last few years, I completely lost my bottle down to nothing. Like I'd come in at a 70, 80 fence and be messing around with my striding and holding too much and faffing because I was nervous. And that was always really disappointing to me. I felt like I'd lost a part of myself and that I didn't think I was ever going to get that back. But I feel like that is 100% coming back now, and that is really strange because I genuinely thought, and like most people say after they've had a baby, they lose their bottle because like who's going to look after the baby if they fall off and get hurt and stuff, whereas maybe I have a really good support system so I know he'd be okay if I die. I have life insurance, so if I die he's set. I'm joking. But yeah, I really just wasn't scared anymore, which I was very surprised at because I genuinely thought that I would be. So that was my biggest takeaway from day one, was that I wasn't scared. I could have happily jumped bigger. I was pleasantly surprised with how forward Carly was. I was a little disappointed with her head shaking, her neck shaking, but she does that when she hasn't jumped in ages, so I was expecting that she'd be a bit like that. What happens with Carly is that she's very strong coming into a fence, but you don't ever actually pull back. You literally just hold your hands in the same place and she will pull against you at that last few strides coming in. So then when she can't pull you away, she'll like shake her head from side to side, whereas actually on the approach coming in, other than those last few strides, she's fine. It's in that last few strides that she just goes, yes, I want to do it. And if you let her run into it, she sort of gets herself close to having a rotational. She can get the pole a bit messed up and things. So you literally just have to sit there and just gently hold. So you're not pulling back, you're keeping in the same position, and she just pulls against you. But that does get better as you go, and as you'll see the next time she jumps, it gets better. And we jumped her again yesterday, which you're not going to see in this video because it was part of a dares video, but she was better still. So she does get better as you go. Just in case anyone's wondering why she does that with her head, Carly hasn't jumped in well over a year, so I was expecting that she would do that. But yeah, the other thing that I was disappointed with from that session was my position, my posture. I'm always a bit triggered by my posture because I do slouch a lot. Basically what happened to me was my collarbone, this right collarbone, I broke when I was 12 years old in this accident. So after that, I decided that instead of having it pinned back, so I had a choice basically, because mine wasn't too bad. It was just kind of the bones crossed over one another like this, and they've still set that way now. So I had two options. I had to either have surgery, which was going to mean a longer recovery for me to have it pinned back straight, which is what I wish I had done. So if you're ever in the same position as I was, get it pinned, guys, because it has caused me so much pain and discomfort since from leaving it like this. So I left it like that to fuse, but obviously this collarbone is now slightly shorter than that one because the bones are on top of one another. So what it's done is drag my right shoulder over, so I'm a little bit hunched like that, and I can straighten it back, but I have to straighten it back and lower it down, and then I get pain up here as well. But that is what I have to do. And because my shoulder sits in that position, my scapula doesn't do very much at all. So my scapula is very under-muscled on my right side, but got normal muscle coverage on my left scapula. So it's really weird. So sometimes I used to get shouted at by one of my trainers for going around corners and my body slightly doing that. And I couldn't understand why I was doing it. And it was only when I went to different physios and chiropractors that they explained to me, it's because one of your shoulders is literally shorter than the other. So when you're turning that way, it kind of like drags around. So there's not an awful lot I can do to stop that. Fortunately, it doesn't affect the horses at all, but it does annoy me. So I wish I'd had it pinned, but all I could do now would be to have it rebroken and repinned, which I just feasibly can't do. So yeah, if you're ever in the same position as I was, get it pinned, guys. Say it loud, get it pinned. But yeah, so that was my first jump back. So overall, I was very pleased, but I didn't like how I slouched coming into the fences, and I didn't sit up very well on landing. I kind of just like went into jumping position and landed almost in jumping position as I moved away, which wasn't what I intended to do. So I knew what I needed to do going into my second jump. So the second jumping session I had, we actually jumped two horses. So we jumped Carly and Tilly. So for this session, we still kept things simple, but we added a couple more fences in. So we had literally like the simplest course that you could ever do, literally down one side, across the diagonal, down the other side. And my main thing with this was that I wanted to be able to see stride. I still had placing poles out to help me, and ground poles of course, but I wanted to see whether I could maintain the same rhythm going around a course and just how balanced I was going around corners and things, and just get a bit of a gist to where I was at. So this was the first time I jumped Tilly in ages as well, but we'll have a look at Carly first. So next jumping session now, guys, and I can already see that we're looking a lot more forward and a lot more supple. Obviously, we've still got loads to work on at this point, and she's nowhere near as relaxed and supple as I'd like her, but you can see a huge difference already. To think these clips were only a week apart is kind of crazy, and I'm actually trying to actively ride more forwards and not just sit there and kind of allow Carly to just move however the heck she wants. I also tried to do a little bit of just staying out of the saddle and then sitting back down again to get my balance and just see how balanced I was completely out of the saddle and just balancing in my stirrups. And it was nice to know actually that I could still do it when I wanted to, and I had a little bit of a trial on the left rein as well doing that. So I'm arching my back a little bit too much, which is kind of cringy, but otherwise I wasn't too unhappy with this. It looked okay. Now warming up over the cross. She still gets her legs in a muddle, but actually this day she was sorting them out afterwards, which I was also really pleased with. Now this approach I was so happy with to that fence, and I feel like I'm really trying to actively sit up a lot more in these clips, which is nice to see considering the other day I was way more leany. So you can see I'm actually trying to sit up on landing here, which is really nice to see. So I just jumped this oxer again because I just wanted her to relax and supple a little bit, and then I think I continued here to have a little look at the course. So I need to look where I'm going a bit earlier there, and that would make the turn a lot smoother. And then she did a really big jump over that, and almost it felt like she nearly jumped me off there, which was quite funny. And a little bit of head shaking and head tossing, but otherwise not too bad. I needed to sit up a little bit more over that last fence. But we did do the course again, and I actually think we did much better this time. We just need to work on our balance around the corners, but that will come in time, and I need to remember sometimes not to be so hard on myself, and that me and Carly are both coming back into work.
Lovely.
That was good. And then we moved on to Tilly. So Tilly hasn't jumped in a long time, and she's quite funny. She's similar to Freckles. If you watched my loose jumping video, they're completely opposite horses, but they have a very similar issue, and that is that when it comes to jumping, they don't really know what they're doing with their legs. So Freckles doesn't know what she's doing with her legs, and so she backs off fences, and then as she gets the hang of it, she gets more confident and progresses a lot better. Tilly doesn't know what she's doing with her legs, so she rushes. Unfortunately, that's a little bit more dangerous, I always think, in my experience, because if they're rushing things, they could get their feet tangled up and end up having a rotational or stumbling or something bad happening. So we like to keep things basic with Tilly to start with. So I jumped her out of trot at the beginning, and then towards the end, we let her have a little play over a few little things in canter, but I will talk you guys through it as I went. So here we are with Tilly. Now, Tilly is a funny little character, and I do remember on this day she hadn't been ridden for a few days. And we didn't lunge her first because the surface does get a little bit deeper than usual when it has been very dry. So we didn't want her to dig a bunch of holes on the lunge going crazy. So we decided to just give her a walk around and then jump straight on. So she's a little bit more tense than usual. She normally supples up a lot nicer than this. But overall, it's not too bad a picture. I definitely need to alter my posture a little bit on her. I needed to shorten my reins and just relax my hands and arms a little bit more so that I had a little bit of a better connection. But otherwise, she was going pretty nice here. And I was just working on trying to get her relaxed enough and just thinking a little bit steadier. You have to ride Tilly very lightly. She's not a horse that you can do too much with at once. If you put too much leg on, or you're a bit too harsh with your hand, or you do something too suddenly, she can get startled a little bit and just get a bit confused at what you're asking her to actually do. So everything has to be done quite smoothly with Till, as you'll see when we start to actually jump in a few minutes. So here she is in the canter, just having a little work around in the canter. And as you can see, she just looks a little bit strong and a bit tense and pulley in places. But otherwise, her pace isn't too bad. What I do like to do with Tilly sometimes is make her go a little bit steadier away than usual in the canter, and then just work on her suppleness of that, and before I add in the pace again. Just so that we're working on getting her supple and relaxed before we're adding too much impulsion to the canter. But otherwise she's working pretty nicely here, and I wanted to just give her that canter before I came to any jumps, and we're adding in quite a few circles just to try and help encourage her to bend correctly and just work a little bit more round and relaxed. So here we are. These clips always make me laugh because I am a big fan of the sniff and jump technique, and Tilly hasn't jumped in a long time. So here she is just having a sniff of this cross pull, which she was very unbothered by, and then moving on to the most tentative trot approach ever, and lovely little pop over it. I was really pleased with that because I really didn't know how she was going to react because it has been a long time at this point since she's jumped. So it was nice to see that she was still excited for it and still wanted to do it. So we tried a canter approach that time and she broke into trot, which I just encouraged her to stay in the trot because I didn't want her to rush in the canter if I quickly tried to pick it back up again. And then we had a little trot over the fences on the other rein. She wasn't quite as bold over that one, but she still loved it nonetheless. I love seeing her little ears pricked forward. It's so sweet and lovely to see. She's obviously missed the jumping, and as you can see, I'm just taking my hand off her, just testing how relaxed she is and how steady away she is. Coming in again, I think we added them all together as a little course this time. So I just encouraged her to canter very steadily wherever it felt like she could, and then she dropped back into trot, and I'd encourage her to approach in trot, pick up the canter again, and move it back down to the trot. So I'm just encouraging her to come back in between the fences because, like we explain later on, she can be a little bit rushy, can Tilly, when she doesn't really know what she's doing with her legs. So I like to remind her that it's okay just to slow it all down again. So then we put up a couple of the fences to little uprights. So just the first one and the last one, we actually kept the middle one as a cross, and we just put it up a little bit. And here we are just coming down to the last, and I was really pleased with how she approached this. She's just looking way more relaxed in the trot. You can see that I'm actually able to soften my hands up, and she just did a lovely little pop over that and not too ridiculously unbalanced afterwards. And so this was when we tried our canter approach. She broke into trot for a couple of little strides there, but overall she picked it up quite nicely without rushing. Now I think she rushed a little bit here, and you can just see her start to hollow out through her neck and her back there. But with a bit more work on her balance, I'm sure she'll start to do great things.
That was nicer.
So overall, I was really pleased with the pair of them jumping that day, and I do think I made some slight improvements. My posture on Tilly wasn't as good as my posture on Carly, but I didn't think it would be because Tilly, I was thinking about a lot of other things, like trying not to die. Because I don't think I've actually jumped Tilly since about 2021, maybe 2022. So it's actually been a few years. So Tilly's still very green when it comes to stuff like that. So hopefully this isn't the longest video. I want to keep these relatively short and sweet because I have a tendency to ramble, so I'm trying not to do that in this video. But if you want to hear me rambling, I am starting my podcast again very, very soon, so keep your ears listening out for that. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm really looking forward to getting back in the ring soon. I'm hoping that perhaps next week I'm going to go to a little unaffiliated evening show jumping competition at our local arena and just see how I get on. So I will let you guys know how that goes. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And don't forget to hit the notification bell to get notified every time I post a new video, because the YouTube algorithm kind of hates me at the minute. So, yeah, please hit the notification bell. I'm excited to share with you guys my journey back into the ring and the rest of my postpartum recovery journey. And I'll be talking a bit more in depth about all that kind of stuff over on my podcast, which will be coming back very soon. But for now, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye!